As your host and, more importantly, your surviving green gold jester, let's dive right into today's explainer. We're looking at a grim, dark fable, folks. We're going to see exactly how the celestial realm systematically dismantles every single human illusion and ounce of agency we think we have. You know, I watch from my vantage point up in the celestial realm, and it's wild to see humans constantly building these comforting little illusions. We like to think we're just so incredibly rational, right? But we're completely oblivious to the fact that our precious reason is, well, it's a trap. As the royal philologist puts it, the human mind isn't some tool for liberation. It's a beautifully tailored prison that just endlessly prosecutes its own reflection. No way out. And that sets up the grim reality we all try so desperately to hide from. The universe? It doesn't default to inherent meaning or some grand Wagnerian narrative of redemption. Absolutely not. It defaults to the heart of negation, just an absolute indifferent nothingness. That is the true baseline of our universe, plain and simple.
So let's get into Act 1, Architects of the Pantomime.
To understand our descent, we really need to meet the architects behind this trap. Think of this as your character sheet of cosmic destruction. We've got the clock hands of high time orchestrating this dark comic pantomime, acting as a triumvirate of symbolic forces. One speaks, that's the wit, one eats, the hunger, and one erases, the small. And working together, their singular goal is to completely collapse your psychological and spiritual agency. Let's look at the first sibling, the wit. This guy acts as a cosmic jester, draped in the heavy vestments of an inquisitorial priest fool. But instead of offering you any sort of spiritual absolution, he drags your rational concepts into a merciless tribunal. The philological archetype here is key, der Geist, der Staatsverneint, meaning the spirit that always denies. He uses razor-sharp logic to basically mock human striving, proving time and again the absolute failure of human reason. Moving right along to the second sibling, the hunger. Picture a hyperconscious, calculating void, just watching us with this amused, detached irony. You know the Nietzschean Faustbook Übermensch, that intense human drive for transcendence and self-overcoming? Well, the hunger turns that very drive into a parasitic, self-destructive obsession. It acts as an infinite maw, happily consuming the toxic harvest of our forbidden knowledge and proving that our attempts at ultimate mastery literally just lead to systemic spiritual bankruptcy. Then we have the most visceral of the three, the small, sometimes called the spirit of gravity. It starts out as just a microscopic shadow anchored right to your spine. It feeds off your repressed impulses, your unacknowledged traumas, and all that unexamined ugliness we hide away. But as it subtracts your light, it undergoes this massive metamorphosis, erupting into a 12-foot stone gargoyle. It becomes a literal monolith of existential dread that physically and psychologically crushes the human spirit. Which brings us to Act 2, the strings. Now that we know the actors, let's look at the grand illusion they've set up for us. This is the total deconstruction of your agency. On one side, we have our comforting illusions. We love to believe we possess free will, that we're making these passionate, highly individual choices, right? But on the flip side is the weaponized truth. Human free will is a complete delusion. You're actually just puppets, completely enslaved to cosmic strings, performing a rigidly predetermined script for the sheer entertainment of a totally indifferent universe. Tough pill to swallow, I know. And that leads us to Act 3, the judgment.
So up in the celestial realm of high time, these three siblings finally meet. And when they converge, they actually fuse into the sovereign of high time, an active agent of the absolute void. Together, they initiate the Untergang, which is the ultimate destruction or descent. This sovereign's entire job is to ensure that absolutely all human structures, meanings, and legacies are rendered utterly inconsequential.
This whole process triggers a state known as the uncanny. It kicks off with a clock stopping, literally the halting of time's vibration. From there, the three siblings synthesize their threefold madness. Next up, the Crimson Eyes judge the individual, and finally, the ink descends to completely deconstruct existence. Let's zoom in on that third step during this cosmic halt. The Crimson Eyes of the demon oversee the siblings' little dance. But here is the truly terrifying part. These eyes, they don't care at all about your past deeds. There is absolutely no moral weighing of good and evil going on here. They are only measuring your becoming and your underlying will. Which brings us to the ultimate existential test. The demon's gaze is asking you one very direct question. Can you stand before total negation without vanishing? Like I mentioned earlier, there is no Wagnerian redemption narrative here, no grand suffering that ultimately saves you. There is only the Nietzschean test of the sovereign free spirit. Can your spirit endure the absolute nothingness of the universe when all your cozy, comforting illusions are violently stripped away? For those who fail, which, let's be honest, is nearly everyone, we arrive at Act 4, the final spill.
So you failed the test. What happens? The ink blot negation descends. Time stops flowing normally and just begins to vibrate in that state of the uncanny. The wit has already dismantled your language, the hunger has consumed the wise man's why, and now the ink blot radically alters all your perception. It proves once and for all that the something of this world is entirely an illusion. It's just a temporary stain upon the nothing.
As the small reduces all things, the noble, the ignoble, all of it, into the exact same dark fluid, existence is permanently extinguished. We are dragged right back to the 1,000-year silence. Total, silent oblivion.
But wait, we have our conclusion, the jester's last laugh.
See, our fable doesn't quite end in silence, because there is one figure who actually survives this ultimate erasure. To survive, you have to adapt to the madness. And how do I do that? By wearing the terrifying attributes of the three siblings, the wit's motley, the hunger's void, and the small's absolute negation, as my very own cloak. By doing this, I, the green gold jester, bridge the silence of the void and the noise of the world. I become the sole laughter that echoes in the dark.
And that leaves you with an ultimate choice, as this explainer and our dark fable comes to a close. I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to chew on. When the cosmic clock finally stops, when the uncanny vibrates and the ink spills over all of reality, are you going to be the puppet, dancing mindlessly on the strings? Or are you the sovereign spirit, the laughter that echoes?